Great morning, humans. Great morning, world. Happy Monday. This is your boy, Dr. JC Doornick, aka The Dragon, and welcome to another Make Sense Monday. So, if you're tuning in live, this is something that gets recorded for our YouTube channel. We're streaming live there as well as our podcast. Podcast version will be all clean and pretty. But if you're with us live, please check in and let us know where you're coming from, because I can see your comments as you come in live on one of our social media platforms. Just maybe pop in and say great morning, and share with us where you're coming from, or perhaps even share some words of inspiration or intention of the day. It's good to be here. Happy Memorial Day. Great morning, Sherry. Great morning, Susan. It's good to see some folks. I just got back from my trip, so we'll maybe share a little bit about that today. But the purpose and premise of Make Sense Mondays is just to take this day that somehow we have created, or manifested, this first day of the week, right? We have the weekend and we get the weekend off, and then we have that first day of the week. So Make Sense Mondays is just about coming in at 8 a.m. every week, and giving us the ability to step out of our programmed, unconscious, response system to how we wake up. When we wake up in the morning, we boot up our brains, boot up just like computers. Make Sense Mondays, as well as all of our morning masterminds that we have in what we call the Make Sense Academy, which is our private community. I'll probably talk a little bit about that. The idea is to claim control of the morning, thus giving you more conscious control and decision-making capabilities for the day. So here we are. It's Monday. It's Memorial Day. Most humans are programmed to perceive this day in a certain way, wake up in a certain way. Maybe you've given yourself the day off. Maybe you're focusing on Memorial Day. Either way, it's just about recognizing that your brain is programmed to boot up and operate today with or without you, just like sleepwalking. So Make Sense Mondays is about getting involved in a conscious conversation about some stuff, and some of it will be funny for you, but that will really get you thinking, consciously thinking, thus handing you the keys, rather than handing the keys of trust over to your program, because we've been programmed our whole life. Handing you the keys today to become the shot caller and dominant force and dominant creator of your life. Great morning, Vicky. Great morning, Rhoda. Great morning, Barbara from Naples, Florida. Yeah, it is great to be alive. What a great way to start the day. Just give me a thumbs up if your heart is beating and you're able to breathe. Because Barbara brings up a good point. That's a pretty nice thing. So anyway, today in today's discussion, and this will end up being a podcast episode that'll get launched later today. I call this When Everything Falls Apart. The first time I heard that concept was from just one of my favorite books from Pema Chodron, just a Buddhist teacher, and she wrote this book. I think it was called When Things Fall Apart. So I'll quote a little bit, but the reason why I chose this topic for today is because I think it's very, very relevant. I think the concept and idea of going through some sort of a life experience, and I'm sure you have, some of you might have just done this, some of you might have it ahead of you today, this idea that everything's falling apart, nothing's going right, and we're just in this space. Sorry, that's my incense. We just get in this space where we feel like a victim of circumstance, and the world in the universe and God is plotting against us. That space right there. So that's the topic of discussion today, when everything seems to fall apart. Because I made a distinction. I had a lot of people. I had some crazy things just recently happen, and I'm about to share that story. But people seem to notice that I'm fine during those times. I always carry a smile, and I'm always optimistic, and I always embrace the suck and handle adversity with grace. So one of the shifts that I realize that I make during those times when things seem to be falling apart is just questioning. I like to dispute everything, including my thoughts and my feelings. Um, it's interesting to dispute and say, is everything falling apart? Or maybe, I love the word maybe, is everything falling into place? So what we're going to do is talk about that today. So I just want to quickly, I'll share my travel story, and hopefully you guys will get a hoot out of it. I see that nobody has commented if their heart is beating and their lungs are breathing. So I'm worried about you now. So once again, if your heart is beating and your lungs are breathing and your blood is flowing, put a thumbs up in there or say a okay, just so I know that you guys are alive. Um, so my travel story. So first, I just want to make mention. Good, Vicky's alive. Good, thank you, Vicky. I was getting worried because you wouldn't be able to run if your heart wasn't beating, right? I know how much you love to run. So first of all, I just got back from hosting a plant medicine retreat in the beautiful jungle of Tulum or somewhere near Tulum, and we had about 18 people there, and it was just an amazing experience, just from all of the different things that we provided as this experience. I mean, there was plant medicine, there was peyote, psilocybin, and sapo, and all of that stuff. But then there was also just community and unity and beautiful music and cold plunges and yoga and meditation and retreats and a beach day and delicious vegetarian and vegan foods and all of these things. So anyway, we created this space for people to have a breakthrough and a transformation. And first, I just want you to know that it far exceeded our expectations. I've never in my life seen from the facilitator and the organizer, the mentor side of it. I've never in my life seen people shift so much. So, for those of you that feel that curious calling for retreats like that, just make sure that you let me know. You could write the word retreat and we'll put you on a list to make sure that you find out about the next one. We've got a waiting list for it. But either way, the perception before I began my crazy journey was that everything was perfect. It was far more than perfect, right? Linda Stearns, welcome back. Thank you, Linda. Great morning to you. So we ended the trip and we debriefed, said goodbye to everybody, and I was going to travel home with a small group of the people. So we got an Airbnb one night, and it was fun. We went out, we had some food, danced a little bit and things, and then the next morning we were all set to come home. Now, coming home for me is the best part, because I just so love my family, and that's my highest value. So I was so excited to come home. I had packed everything. We arranged to have a taxi pick us up, and this is in Mexico, so things are a little different there. But I was just so excited. I had my flight. I liked my seat. I had an aisle seat. Everything was wonderful. And to the point of this discussion today. What I started to notice, because everything was going wonderfully, and I don't know if you can resonate with this, but I started to notice the winds of change coming upon us. Now, I, for one, fully embrace the suckiness and inevitable concept behind the winds of change. Now, sometimes that works for you, right? When things are going bad and you know that the winds of change are inevitable, it'll shift in your direction. But we also know we don't have to worry about it. But I sensed that everything was about to change. Now, I wasn't predicting it, but things started to show up that were not in support uh, and in favor of leveraging what it is that I wanted, which was to come home. So the first thing that I noticed, and here's this crazy, crazy story that you're not going to believe is true, but I'm sure you'll resonate with it. If you guys have a story like this, please share it with me because it's just a hoot. So the first thing that I noticed is that the taxi driver that was supposed to pick us up, because there's a timetable, international travel, you have to be there 3 hours early and all that stuff, right? So we planned way ahead for this. We even had this guy picking us up to get us there 3.5 hours early, right? And we're just going to the airport, right? The airport is about 30 minutes away. So the first thing we noticed is that the taxi driver was late. Winds of change, right? He was about 15 minutes late, but when you're going to the airport, that's quite a thing, right? So we have 5 people, so we had ordered a van so that we could all go. So here he comes in something that looked like a mini, right? I mean, he's late, and the car is so small, and he doesn't speak English, and we're speaking chopped up Spanish. So, but we explained to him, hey, you're late, we're in a rush, and we can't fit in your car. So we're thinking, do we get in this car like clowns, or do we get another car? So the guy says, I'm going to get another car, a bigger car. And we said, when will you be back? And he says, in 5 minutes. We said, okay, it's important to get back in 5 minutes because we've got to get to the airport. We don't want to be late and things like that. So of course he doesn't come back in 5 minutes. He comes back in 15 or 20 minutes. So now we're about a good half hour behind schedule. And think about the feelings that you have when things are not going your way, or when they begin to not go your way, right? What are those feelings? You can share them in the comments if you're watching live. Your heart starts to race a little bit. You begin to have thoughts process of worry. You're not going to make your flight and all of that stuff. Potentially even some anger, right? Blame associated with the driver not caring about you and all that stuff. So finally he comes in an Escalade, and we're like, okay, great. We're going to make it, maybe we don't have to be there 3 hours early or whatever. So we're sweating because it's very, very hot. We've got all of our luggage. We're out of the Airbnb. We're out in the hot sun on the road, and here comes his Escalade. So he brings the right car, and we get in the car, and we're like, okay, things are going our way. So we begin the process of driving in that car. And for those of you listening to this, this will be an entertaining story for you, but just remember, this is meant for you to relate in your own way to something that could happen to you, right? Or something that's happened to you in the past, where you could always choose a different way of looking at it and responding. That's the purpose of this lesson. So we're in the Escalade, and we're on our way to the airport. Fantastic. And we don't really know where we are, so we don't know where the airport is, but we told the guy Tulum Airport, and we said it and everything. So we're like, okay, this is what he does. We're on our way to the airport, right? And as far as I knew, the airport was about a half hour away. So time started to, go a little longer than that. It was about 45 minutes. And I just remember asking him, are we almost there? Right. And because there was traffic and things, and I thought maybe it was taking some more time. So he says, yes, we're almost there. But then an hour went by, and I said, there's no way that it would take an hour to get to this airport. Right. So I asked him, I said, are we almost at the airport? And he says another 30 minutes. And I said, what airport are you taking us to? And he told us he was taking us to the wrong airport. He was taking us to the Cancun airport, which is way farther away. And in Mexico, if there's traffic, things are a mess. So everybody freaks out in the car because remember, there's 5 people in this car, and they all have their own reason for being upset. Somebody's going to miss their child's parade. Somebody has a business thing. Me, selfishly, I just want to get home and maybe have some rest and things like that and see my family. But everybody, and I'm just perceiving everybody's freaking out. And we said to the guy, we said, we're going to Tulum. And he says, no, you said Cancun. So we said, look at your phone, look at the order. And he realized it's supposed to be Tulum. So the guy pulls a U-turn, and now we have to go back. And we look at our GPS, and it says it's going to take 2 hours to get back to the right airport. So just process that for a second, right? So we're starting to naturally, knee-jerk response, feel like victims, right? Because now you're the thoughts, regardless of how solid your response system is, our thoughts are to blame and get angry as if that's going to help, right? So I'm watching that transpire in the other people. But I'm kind of just got this smirk on my face because I know a couple of things about scenarios like that, and that's what I wanted to share with you. So anyway, let me just go through the rest of the story because it's just so crazy. So we're in this intense traffic, and we finally, I mean, the guy tried his best. We finally get there, and we missed the flight by 5 minutes. So we get to the airport, we're sweating, we run in there, and they close the gate. And once they close the gate, the flight hasn't is not taking off for another 55 minutes, but we lost that hour window, and they said, "I'm sorry, we can't do it." So we went through that process. Now we're missing our flight, and you can see all the reactions to that because now everybody's a victim. Everything just is cascading, and it's very, very hard to not feel like you're a victim. But I'm kind of smiling at the whole thing, and just because I know a couple of things, and that's what I'm here to share with you. So we missed the flight. So then what we decide to do is we say, okay, let's rebook a flight. So we'll get the flight tomorrow. So they book us on a flight tomorrow. We're all going to the same airport, Newark Airport. So we book a flight. Rebook it for tomorrow at 10. So now we need a place to stay. And we're thinking, oh, let's find a cool place to stay. And we all agree, let's go stay closer to, because now we're flying out of this Cancun airport. So we have to go back to Cancun another, 2 hours. So we decide to take a bus to save some money because we're keep paying for all of these things. The taxis are very expensive. So we take this bus that's like $20 a person. And we're going to go to the Cancun airport and then find an Airbnb close by. So we go to the bus, ticket center, and we buy the bus, and they said there's no bus that goes to Cancun. So you have to take a bus first to like the center of town in this place called Playa del Rey. And then once you get there, they said you'll get out and you'll buy a ticket for the bus from there to Cancun. So I'll go a little bit faster right now because there's much more coming. So we get on the bus and we're like, okay, we're moving in the right direction. We have our seats booked for tomorrow. So we get to Playa del Rey, and I think that took about an hour and a half. So we get to Playa del Rey, and keep in mind it's very hot and humid, and there's no air conditioning in any of this, right? So we get to Playa del Rey, which is kind of like a cool place. We get off the bus. Um, not really able to communicate. I speak a little bit of Spanish, but I buy tickets to Cancun, and that bus is about 45 minutes away. So they said 45 minutes from now you'll get on this bus and you'll go to Cancun. Once we get to Cancun, we'll take a taxi to our Airbnb, which we booked, and then we'll stay there that night and we'll go in the morning. Right. So an hour goes by and there's no bus. Right. So we're sitting there outside sweating, in the middle of nowhere. And they're making announcements, but we don't know what they're saying. So basically, we see 2 hours go by. Now we're waiting 2 hours for this bus, and this guy comes out and makes an announcement. I spoke to this woman that speaks a little bit of English, and I said, "What did he say?" She says, "The bus that we were waiting for got into an accident." And it's not coming. And I said, "When's the next bus?" And she said, "He said there's no more buses." so, so there's no more buses, right? Now, there's something else that I have to share with you that I forgot. While we were at the airport where we bought the bus tickets to get to where we're at right now, I put my cell phone down right behind me, like right to the side of me as I was talking to my friends, and somebody stole it, right? My cell phone. So think about losing your wallet and your cell phone and things like that. So we got up to go get our bus. I looked, I couldn't find my phone. So now my phone is gone, and it was plugged into one of those expensive chargers. So I lost my phone and my charger. I go to the information desk, I go to the police. Nobody knows nothing. There's no cameras or anything. So I have to make this decision. I got to get on the bus with no cell phone. So now I've lost my cell phone, and I have to go through the process in my head as well that somebody is like, maybe there's identity theft, or who knows what's going on, but I lost my cell phone. And I don't know if you know what it's like to not have your cell phone, but only then do you realize how much you use your cell phone. So by the way, as I'm going through all of this stuff and we find out that the bus is not there, I don't have my cell phone, so I can't even tell my wife, right? And my wife had a new cell phone number, right? And I didn't even remember it. So without internet, all of that stuff. So it goes on. So finally, we get to this idea. We go, "Well, let's go get a taxi." So we get a taxi to go to the Airbnb. Now we were supposed to go to the Airbnb at a certain amount of time so we'd have a little bit of fun and relaxation in Cancun, but this taxi, which cost us a lot of money, so we've already lost all this money. He gets us there, and we get to Cancun to the Airbnb at 11 p.m. So I can tell you that, I mean, I'm very proud of this group, but people were starting to lose their shit, right? People were starting to lose their shit. But I'm just laughing because I know a couple of things that I'm here to share with you. So we get to the Airbnb and it's 11 p.m. and all we want to do is just go relax, maybe get some food. We knock on the door, we put the code in for the Airbnb and it doesn't work, right? So we knock on the door just because that's a natural response. And this guy comes to the door and it turns out there's four people living in the Airbnb. They've overbooked it. Right. So we get to the Airbnb and just think about how your brain processes these things. You start to process this stuff as if you're unlucky or misfortunate. You know, this, you're a victim of circumstance. Everything is falling apart and going wrong. You start to feel unlucky, right? You feel almost like you're cursed. So I was listening to that discussion, like, what else could go wrong? You know, why me? All of that stuff. And I'm smiling through this process. For those that know me, you know, and this is the very reason I wrote my book and created the Make Sense Academy and created this thing called the interface response system. It's because if you look, most of life is like that, right? As we're seeking wins and success and happiness and joy, most of life, you know, shows you that everything that you desire sits inconveniently on the other side of a pile of shit. So if you don't learn how to navigate shit and navigate and embrace and navigate the suckiness of life, right? You're going to struggle. So in any case, now we don't have a place to stay and we've lost our taxi. So we have to walk down the street, hot, very hot, sweaty, exhausted. So we decide to go find another taxi, and that taxi takes us to, now we decide let's just get an airport hotel. So we go to the hotel in the airport, right? No phones. So other people have to use their phones and everything. And we find this thing called the Hilton Garden, which is about a half mile from the airport that we're leaving from in the morning. So we say, great, let's not take any more chances. Obviously, the universe is trying to teach us a lesson. So there's some positive talk about that. But in any case, we decide let's just get close to the freaking airport, right? But our flight in the morning, it boards at 8 o'clock. So we all say, I don't have a phone, right? Because I can't set my alarm, and I'm staying with my roommate, this guy Bill. So we all say, let's wake up at 5 a.m. and just to be sure, they have a shuttle set up in the morning. They'll take us to the airport. We wake up and we'll just get on the shuttle and we'll go, right? So we go to eat some dinner. A couple of other funny things happen there where they say room service, you can't put it on your room and you need to pay with a credit card, and you can't eat it over here. You have to eat it in your room. So and then the bar, we went to get a drink at the bar and the bar closed 1 minute before we got there. So we could, you know, there were some funny things there. But anyway, we go to sleep, much needed. We're very, very tired and we're excited. We have our flight booked. So I wake up in the morning and Bill is poking me, and I wake up and I go, oh, okay, cool, must be 5 a.m. And Bill looks at me and he says, he says, my alarm didn't go off. So you know, I just woke up and I'm trying to process that. So just think about your situation, you know, being in this situation, how you would respond. Because I just woke up, I'm not even conscious yet, and Bill is poking me saying my alarm went off. Now I don't have a phone, so I said, what time is it? We were supposed to wake up at 5, and he says it's 6:30. So now I'm processing in my head that if I don't get to the airport by 7, if I get there at 7:01, the same thing's going to happen and I'm going to lose my flight. So I think I probably yelled at Bill, right? But either way, you know, I'm navigating this. I'm enjoying the process to a certain extent, but I make a conscious decision that I'm going to get to this freaking airport, right? So I grab all my stuff, you know, I just throw it in a bag, make sure I have my passport and my wallet, right? Don't need to worry about my phone. And I run down to I leave Bill, right? Because Bill's moving slow and I don't want to move slow. So I go down to the lobby and I said, I need a shuttle to the airport. And they said, you missed your shuttle. And I said, when's the next shuttle? And they said, well, we'll have to book one, right? And barely speaking English. So there's no shuttle. I have no way of getting there. I said, what about a taxi? She says, I can call one, but it'll take time for it to get here. So I asked her, I said, where's the airport? How far away is it? She says, it's like, I didn't understand what she said, but she says it's down the street. So it's about a quarter of a mile away. Right. So I just grab my bags. I have wheels on them with a backpack. Right. And I run outside, very, very hot, and I start running down the busy highway street. I cross the street, everybody's honking at me, and I'm running down. You know what it's like when you're coming to terminals, right? So I'm running down the street with my bags, and I'm just going to run to the friggin' airport. So, long story short, I get to the airport, I run in, dripping wet sweat, no shower, everything's discombobulated, and I got in the gate like 3 minutes before I needed to, and I won, right? I got there and I won, and I was able to board the flight and get home last night, and I'm with my family. So, the reason why I share this story with you, it's I'm sure it was entertaining, but I want to give you a little bit of context and a couple of tools that you can use, that I use very, very often. So I told you one of those shifts that I make in life is that I'm very, very much aware of some of the inevitables and the uncontrollables in life. And that is that change happens, right? So I always remind myself of impermanence, right? One of the things that we teach in our in our retreat is to acknowledge that breathing is a great way of reminding yourself of impermanence. If you deep breathe all the way in, because I'm breathing through this whole process, and you hold your breath, you'll notice that it's inevitable that you'll have to move towards breathing out. And then if you hold upon exhale, you'll have to. So I love breathing because breathing reminds me that everything changes, right? Change is inevitable and nothing lasts forever. So that's one of the tools that I use. I also want to share with you something that in Buddhism they refer to as the eight worldly winds. If you want to look this up, this is a great tool to have in your tool case, because in the interface response system, what I teach people is I teach people to acknowledge this kind of stuff that I'm talking about. Change is inevitable, and also recognize that your thoughts and your feelings are very much knee-jerk responses to how you've been raised and programmed, right? So once you're in acknowledge and you acknowledge how perception is created, this validates you taking a pause, pausing your programmed response, and stepping into this space where you can think more rationally and logical, right? And more consciously, thus making better decisions. So what I'm sharing with you with change is inevitable and understanding why we think the way we think and our sense making machines and why they work, that validates you taking a chill and not overreacting, right? So here's another one of those things. There's something called the eight worldly winds. And these are things that in Buddhism, they say, whether you like it or not, these things happen, right? They are gain, loss, status, disgrace, praise, censure, pleasure, and pain. So those are the eight worldly winds that are going to happen no matter what. So in Buddhism, they acknowledge the eight worldly winds so that when you perceive something like pain, right, or loss, which is what I was experiencing all the time, you have a decision to either participate in that, or just like you would observe your brain thinking or your heart beating or your lungs breathing, just acknowledge that that's what they do. Your heart beats, your lungs breathe, your eyes see, and things like that. It doesn't mean that you have to participate and become tethered to that process and then call it reality. So when you hear the eight worldly winds, those are the winds of change. And one of the things that I noticed throughout this whole process, and this is when you can pull out one of those sayings like "This too shall pass." Right? That's another tool that you can use. Is was everything falling apart, or was I just acknowledging the winds of change, the eight worldly winds? And the reason why I didn't, freak out, because I could have freaked out. I could still be freaking out. I could be tethered to what happened these past couple of days right now and have it ruin my day. Why am I not doing that? Because I've learned, and this is what I teach with the interface response system. And if this is something that you feel that you need, just write the words "make sense" in the comments or reach out to me and I'll send you an invitation to come into our group and learn this interface response system and interact with people that think this way. But what I've learned how to do is acknowledge that all these things that happen are completely out of my control. And I'm not a victim of them. I'm just in perception of them, because that's how my eyes work and my body feels. So when I perceive all these things happening, it doesn't mean they're happening to me. So this idea of, is everything falling apart, or is this just how this day everything is falling together? Right? So I'm going to do another episode on this because I wrote so much more. But that's what I wanted to share today. So I wanted to share a little bit of a entertaining story for you, to just hear my story. And when you heard it, your knee jerk response was to say, "Oh my God, how terrible, how crazy." Or maybe it reminded you of something that you're either going through right now. Maybe you're in the pattern of things happening to you and just feeling unlucky, or a victim of it. Or you can remember a scenario like this. I can remember many scenarios where things like this have happened, right? Here's a great quote from the amazing Stoic Epictetus that I'll share with you. It says, "Don't demand that things happen as you wish." See, that's where the challenge comes, where you wake up in the morning and you think, just because you've planned, which is what God laughs at, just because you've planned and you've set a goal that day, backed up with action and all of that stuff that we learn, right? You're demanding that things happen as you wish. One of the dangers in affirmations is when you affirm that something's going to happen and you make a decision, you also have to remember the uncontrollables. So he says, don't demand that things happen as you wish. He says, but wish that they happen as they do, and you'll go on well. So just imagine how your life will change. And that's not just about accepting fate, because we do have the ability to choose how we perceive and respond to things. Remember, we don't control things. We control how we perceive and respond to them. And that's where we get to win. That's why I'm here in the winner's circle. Because remember something, if I gave up and didn't run to the airport, I wouldn't be here right now. That's a healthy response system. I said, run, right? So I do have a choice. I do have the ability to alter my future and leverage myself in my future. And it's based on how I perceive and respond to things. This is why I teach what I teach. However, when things happen, your perception of them is going to depict how you respond. You understand? So when things happen, rather than feeling, for instance, that they're happening to me, right? I learned to dance in the rain, to become a shit navigator, right? To understand that the eye of the storm is coming. So that's the win here. Those are the tools. That's why I share the Epictetus quote. That's why I shared the eight worldly winds, so you can understand that when these things are happening, they're always happening. You're just perceiving them, but how you perceive them and how you respond is where the win is. So I find that I sit right now as I close out. One of the ways that I live my life is what Pima Chodron refers to as the middle way. I like to live my life in between um, everything that I want and everything that happens, right? Um, and just say it's all good and embrace the suck and the wins just the same, right? You can't appreciate the light without the dark. So I like to live in the middle way, but I'm in a state of extreme gratitude for this Monday, this makes sense Monday, for all of you, for the fact that I'm home, for the fact, Barbara, that I'm alive, that I'm breathing, my heart's beating. You know why I'm in extreme gratitude? Because of what I've just recently experienced. It makes it so much sweeter. So if I could go back to any stage of that incredibly crazy event, right? I wouldn't change a thing. I wouldn't change a thing. And as I look forward at this day, I have the same goals as you. I want to be healthier, happier, and wealthier. That's the same. I'm a seeker of the just like you. That's what I've set my goals, and I have goal setting techniques, and I teach that as well. So I want the same things. And what I'm going to do to leverage those things is I'm going to do things that leverage them. I'm going to filter out, get rid of anything that doesn't matter, right? And go all in, just like anybody else, and leverage the hell out of my goals to be happier, healthier, and wealthier today. However, I'm aware, fully aware, and I'm not attracting that. I'm fully aware of the eight worldly winds and impermanence and all of these things. And I have to be equally engaged in that awareness and also my programmed brain and the way I have a tendency of thinking and feeling with my knee jerk response. I'm aware of all those things. I'm not foolishly thinking just because I made a decision and I'm leveraging the hell out of it today with action that all of those other things go away, right? And I can block them out as much as I want. But when things fall apart, I can learn how to dance in that rain just as happily as I will dance when things seem to be going well. So hopefully you needed to hear this morning. You can share this video, share the podcast. The podcast is called Make Sense with Dr. JC Doornick. If you're not part of our community, our Make Sense community, there's no better platform and community for you to stop trying to develop who you are and rather discover who you truly are and then learn how to develop that, because you might be developing something that somebody else created in your childhood, in your formative years, right? So just write makes sense or just come right out and ask me. It's $24 a month. My wife, our friend Julie, and I created it. So just imagine getting mentoring, collaboration, access to all of these lessons and online courses for 20 bucks a month. And we even also offer a risk-free guarantee. If you don't think that the $24 was worth it, we'll give it back to you. Hey Lori, great morning to you. So have an amazing day, everybody. And I hope that just something that I just shared will be of use to you. Enjoy your Memorial Day. It's great to be back, no matter what happens today. Have a wonderful day.